today, I want to talk a little bit about Myles Leonard, he's been the latest player in the sports world to try to be potentially canceled for comments. He made an ladies and gentlemen. Myles Leonard has been suspended by the Miami Heat. He's been fined $50,000 by the NBA for use of an anti-Semitic slur during a Twitch live stream. And I have a couple of thoughts about this. Obviously, I don't agree with what Myles Leonard said. To be truthfully honest with you, I had to look up what the word was because I personally have never heard that word before. I grew up in a Christian household, went to a private Christian school. I maybe it's just ignorance of Judaism that I don't know what that word is, and I don't know what that word means, but I had no idea what that word meant, and I had to have somebody explain it to me and why it was so offensive. I'm not debating that what Myles Leonard said was right or wrong. It was very clearly wrong. It was ignorant or it was very ignorant of how that might offend that specific ethnic group. I mean, hell, if I didn't know what that meant, I would imagine that he didn't know what that meant as well. But I think people need to park the brakes on how harshly Myles Leonard should be punished for this. And I really enjoy Julian Edelman and how he has treated some of these things in the past, because he did the exact same thing when Deshaun Jackson made those very insensitive comments about the Holocaust a couple of years ago. Julian Edelman reached out to Myles Leonard and said, I understand that you didn't do this out of hate, but ignorance is sometimes more harmful than hate. Let's get together. I'll teach you about my culture. I absolutely love that from Julian Edelman, and I think that's the approach that most people should be taking with this. Myles Leonard clearly did not say this without any hate intended. And I can tell you from, being mostly an avid gamer, I have my controller here on the side of my desk. I used to do Twitch streams in my time. I used to play a shooter game very regularly in my life, and I was pretty good at it. I played it competitively, for fun. Obviously, the scene is not that big, and I can tell you from an experience that when you are in the zone playing a video game, sometimes you completely forget that you're on camera or that you are being watched by somebody. And it is very easy to say things that you do not intend to say and say things that you do not mean to say. I can tell you that when I have been competing in the heat of competition, when I have been competing against sometimes my own teammates, I would have dragged their name through the mud. I would have said things, and it's hard to say without actually saying it, but I would have said, all these nasty things and these insults to this person. And in the heat of the moment, I would have felt like, oh, I'm saying this to you, I'm trying to insult you. But literally after the game was over, it's like nothing had ever happened. And some of these guys are some of my pretty good friends that I still talk to this day. And especially on a Twitch stream, in which if you know anything about Twitch, you know that comments like Myles Leonard's comments, not specifically racist comments, but trash talking and insults are something that happens pretty regularly on the platform. Now, this isn't to excuse Myles Leonard's actions. Again, what he said was wrong, and if you put it in the context of him competing in an NBA basketball game, there is obviously trash talking that's said during the game. It's in the heat of the moment. You don't feel that way. You don't feel specific hatred towards that person. But if it's racist and it's ignorant and it's ethnically not okay to say those terms, it would be wrong in that context too. But everybody is just so angry over this without understanding how much of an accident and how much of, how unintentional this was to be offensive. I think everybody is being too offensive about this or too offended about this. He's very clearly sorry, and he's paying what many people would call a stupid tax for his actions, and his actions should be punished. He said something that is not very good. He said something that's not kosher. But he said something that if anybody said it, they would be punished, especially when you're that important of a celebrity and you hold yourself to a higher level of understanding and a higher level of what's the word I'm looking for? You hold yourself to a higher standard than most people, and people hold you to that standard. I'm just saying people need to relax on hating the man so much for what was very clearly a mistake and just dogpiling on him, when the reality is that if this were not Myles Leonard and somebody else had said this on the internet, or somebody else was, and not specifically the anti-Semitic comments, but if anybody else were trash talking on Twitch playing Call of Duty, everybody that was familiar with that context is going to say, I saw nothing out of the ordinary here. People trash talk on that game all the time. I can tell you from my experience playing other video games that I trash talk, sometimes some of my better friends, I trash talk them, you know? So, everybody needs to park the brakes when it comes to insulting Myles Leonard. He made a mistake. He's paying for it. But the cancel culture needs to chill out on this one. It was very evidently a mistake. He shows clear remorse. And again, not making any excuses for Myles, not saying that what he said was right in any stretch of their imagination, because it was absolutely wrong. He shouldn't have said it. I believe that he didn't know what it means, because personally, I've never heard the word before. Now, it doesn't mean that it just because I haven't heard it doesn't mean that it doesn't have any relevance. But regardless of that, people need to park the brakes on Myles Leonard. He's paying his stupid tax. He made a mistake. And if he weren't Myles Leonard and this were said by another streamer playing the same game, and you have the context of what is acceptable and what is said constantly in that specific situation, I think people would be able to back off and say, okay, it was a mistake. It was said in the moment. No, it was just ignorant. It wasn't meant with hatred, and people would move on. Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for watching this segment from the Hard Headed Sports Podcast. You've heard what I've had to say. Now I'm interested to hear what you think as well. If you enjoyed this highlight from the show and want to watch more highlights from the show as they come out after the show's completion, you should definitely subscribe to the YouTube channel. And if you're interested in listening to the entire show in its full-length entirety, you should follow the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Anchor. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you all very soon.